Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the All Hands call, which is really a review of our last financial year, which closed, as you all know, in February, and a preview of everything that we need to get done and all of our objectives for FY22, the current year. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about some of our results and the highlights of last year and lay out our priorities and our areas of focus for next year or for this year now. But there's been a number of requests for really an update on our platforms and our business applications. And I think you would all recall that just at the turn of the calendar year, we announced that Rakesh was taking up the new role as CTO, in addition to his continued responsibilities of CEO of our Sub-Saharan Africa business. So we've asked Rak today to come and explain a little bit about his role and the focus that he's putting on our commercial applications for FY22. And Dwight is, Dwight is going to join us. He has a really key role in supporting Rak in all of the development of our platforms and our applications, but also, of course, has that responsibility to focus on maintaining our infrastructure. And he'll talk through some of those FY22 IT priorities. And then we're going to hear from Donna to just cover off the elements that are really important to us around our people. So all of you and that area for FY22. And of course, at the end, we'll cover off, as we always do, any questions that you have. So if, as we go through the event today, just please feel free to type questions that you do have in that Q&A panel. And at the end, we'll go through as many of those as we can, and they'll appear on the screen so that the group, all of the presenters, can come back on and answer any questions that you've got. So without further ado, let's move to look at last year, FY21. So people have asked me how I would describe last year from a Westcon Constor perspective. Of course, we came into February, March of last year with very, very uncertain times, and of course, recognizing that we are still living in very, very difficult circumstances in a number of the countries in which we operate. But my perspective is that the business, and that really means all of you, gave an unrivaled response to the unprecedented circumstances. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that collectively we have outperformed our competition and done a great job for both our vendors and our customers and worked together so effectively. So you can see around that wheel some of the elements that I think are really worthy of call out. So, to have all of our employees, with the exception of the teams in the logistics centres, working from home in less than a week across the entire organisation is just absolutely world class. And of course, also need to recognise that the teams in the logistics centres, and in fact the whole supply chain team, kept our business going. So our frontline employees were those teams in the logistics centres and supply chain. Despite the fact that we were uncertain about how the business market would perform, our sales were up year on year by over $200 million. We generated more gross profit, we controlled our costs really well, and therefore our earnings were up year on year, which actually, when you hear so much in the media about businesses struggling through COVID, we've done an exceptional job. Excepting, of course, that we recognise that, of course, the technology we sell and we distribute is in high demand to make organisations and their employees much more productive in the work from home and the remote configuration. But more than that, we were also anxious, of course, about what would happen with people paying us. Well, across both APAC and EMEA, our collections, our cash collections, have been the best they've ever been for 6 years. The finance teams in both Asia Pac and EMEA renegotiated the funding and finance that we used to run our business, so that significantly reduced our interest expense, and we've ended the year with over $100 million of additional cash. And that's really important for you as a group, I believe, to understand that we are financially in a really strong position coming out of last year. And ordinarily at this point, I would probably have asked all of the executive teams to talk about some of their achievements, but that would be a lot of choreography of people coming up and sitting down, or they'd ask me to make those call outs. But actually what we've done is we've put together a montage of the achievements of last year across the business. So we're going to play now. It's only a 3-minute video, but it absolutely reflects on everything that you collectively and we have achieved in the last 12 months. So let's just sit back and watch that video now. So I think you'd agree that some of the points that were called out there are just a fabulous reflection of all of the hard work of every single one of the teams across the business. So my unrivaled response for the unprecedented circumstances, I believe, stands firm, and you collectively did a fantastic job. So thank you very much indeed for all of your hard work, commitment and support. So, of course, we come off the back of what has been, I think, a difficult year from a human perspective. There's no doubt that we've all found working at home or working remotely much more challenging at times than probably we would have envisaged, and for a lot longer than we had probably hoped. And our objective of getting back into an office-based working environment is clearly a priority, as and when it's safe and appropriate for that to be the case. But from a business point of view, we had a fantastic year. And this year, moving into FY22, we really need to build on that momentum. There's no doubt that we have the strongest vendor relationships and customer relationships we've had for a long time. And therefore, our expectation of sales growth is that we believe we need to be more aggressive in our sales approach this year, and we're looking for a 9% uplift in our sales. That is helped somewhat by the exchange rate implications comparing year on year. We're expecting our gross profit to increase by 5%, and the reason it's not matching sales is because that we still see some additional costs and expenses that affect our profit on the inbound and outbound logistics. There are still significant constraints around freight capacity, and that increases our costs, which we can't always recover from the vendors and certainly can't pass on to all of our customers. And therefore, we think that we will get a bit of a squeeze on our gross profit, and some of it will be sales mix. We'll hold our expenses broadly flat, although our people-related expenses, we're going to increase our costs with our people by over 8%, and that's reflecting on the number of new people, a number of new roles we're bringing in to focus on the investment businesses. But it's also a reflection that actually, for the first time in Europe, primarily, we've seen significant currency swings with the euro and sterling against the dollar, and with a weaker dollar, our cost base increases. But all of that means that we expect this year to be 30% more profitable on our bottom line than the year before, and drive our interest costs down even further. And that means that we will continue to be even more profitable, and that just means that we'll have a stronger, safer and more secure business. If we then think about some of the non-financial objectives and priorities for the business, which is on the next slide, what we want to make sure that we really focus on over the next 12 months is that responsible revenue growth that I talked about. Actually selling more is relatively easy, but the real art, of course, is to make sure we get paid for those sales, and therefore making sure that we trade with customers who are creditworthy, and making sure that we get an end-to-end supply and cash collection means we have to be really focused on driving our sales up, but doing it in a responsible way. This focus on cash collection, cash generation is going to be very important as we continue to want to fund the business. But in the conversations that I had with nearly all of the business leaders, particularly in Europe, about what we should focus on doing in the next 12 months, what became very clear is that throughout the course of last year, we tried to drive a number of process improvements, deliver some automation, and really try and make our business more productive. But we recognize that all the time that people are not working from offices, some of that new way of working, some of that working with your colleagues in the new team structures, it isn't quite possible to implement it as fully and as completely as we'd like. And therefore, before we start moving on to look at the next new initiatives, we really do need to make sure that we finish what we've started, to make sure that those improvements really are giving us the benefits that we're looking for and allowing you to be more productive, because otherwise we won't be able to grow the business, and we just keep asking everybody to do more. And when reviewing the number of people who are looking at doing their day job and also having to help with some of these programs, we just know that we need to make sure that we are managing that very careful balance. I think one of the advantages of working remotely is that it gives us more human flexibility. That's important. But the downside is the availability and the fact that we are easily drawn into working significantly longer hours, and we just need to make sure that we all strike that balance. Our digital agenda has never been more important. Throughout the course of last year, we saw activities that gave us venue, that was called out in the video, but actually continuing and maintaining that digital focus. So not just on our marketing capability, but really focusing on making sure that as we do finish what we've started and really investing in our platforms and our tools to help us be more productive, it has to be done to allow us to scale the business without increasing our costs. But it also means that we have to do those things to mean that it gives everybody in the business more time to be more productive and do the quality job that I know we all want to do for our vendors and our customers. Our data capability is improving very quickly, and while we have a long-term objective to be driven to make better decisions from our data, we're still relatively early in our adoption of using data more effectively as to measure the performance of many parts of our business. So in the next 12 months, we just want to make sure that we are measuring the right areas and that we are informed, and we use these metrics to help us with our judgment along that road to be really driven by the data. And of course, as we start to see the recession of the COVID impacts, we need to really make sure that we're able to define and evolve our post-COVID business model. That may well mean that we see more of our activities done from the office, so being more productive by using some of the tools to drive the subscription type activity. But also we recognise that we've managed to run our business really successfully in a remote organisation structure. Now, we're not suggesting that we can continue to do that forever. We know that we need to get back into offices, but a degree of flexibility is certainly going to be something that I think we all recognise has to be part of our future business model. So we are piloting a more flexible working program, and we've also introduced a remote working etiquette that really makes sure that we are conscious of people's time zones and their availability. So there are a number of areas, not just around our people and our processes, that I think will help us define and evolve our post-COVID business model. And we need to do all of those things while also maintaining the focus that we've had on the business for the last 2 or 3 years that has really led to the significant turnaround and success that we've seen. One of the areas that I touched on already that is going to be absolutely critical for us this year is to make sure that our platforms and our tools that we use in the business every day are brought to the fore and are absolutely fit for purpose and continue to evolve. And that's why we created the CTO role. So I'm now going to hand over to Rak, who is going to spend some time just talking to us all about exactly what this CTO role and its objectives and deliverables are really all about. Rak, over to you.
Thanks very much, David. Appreciate the introduction, and hello and good morning and good afternoon to everyone out there. It's a great opportunity for me to talk to you a bit about this CTO function and this role, because as you know, it's a new role and we haven't had in our business before. And probably a lot of people are asking, well, what really is the function and what are we out there to do? So firstly, we see ourselves as the custodians of making sure that we're driving the commercial value from the technologies and the platforms that we've invested in. The teams really is coming together of people who have already been in the business with deep expertise, but taking that business knowledge that they have and understanding of the technology trends and bringing that together ultimately to help us execute on our strategies moving forward. And we see that as really providing a balance. We've got to optimize the things that we have today, make sure that we're delivering them effectively, making sure that they're effective for you and being able to perform the roles and the functions that you need to, but also looking at where we need to be tomorrow, and making sure that we're enabled and ready to be able to deliver on what our vendors and our partners are going to be asking for us in the near future. And really the focus is around making sure that there is a tight view around what are the benefits that we get from any of the investments that we make in any platforms moving forward. So if we look at how we're going to get this maximum value, really we're looking at 3 main ways of bringing things together. Firstly, we want to make the decisions based on some real data. So we want to make sure that if we're going to look to implement a new project or make some changes, that we are able to baseline what we have today, and that we're able to understand the metrics and the KPIs of what we want to achieve by delivering on a new platform or new capabilities within the business. I want to ensure that we have really strong governance. And that's not really to be bureaucratic to make it harder and not do things, but we want to make sure that we go through the right processes at the start that make it easier to execute, and that we really understand why we're setting out a particular objective and the ROI that we want. And ultimately, what the CTO function is the bridge between the business and yourselves and the technology teams, and working hand in glove with all of those teams to make sure that we're able to look at the capacity that's available and the priorities that you need from a business perspective. I'll introduce you quickly to who the team are. And really, there are two components of the CTO function. There's the commercial technology team, which is led by Sam Paris. And then there's the Center of Excellence team, which is led by Rhys Jones, as well as Matil Patel as a program director within the function. And I won't go through all the names on the organogram, but you will see that the people who are here have all been in the business in various functions for a number of years, whether it's through looking at process excellence and optimization, or looking at the platforms that we have and having an understanding of those. Bringing this team together allows us to be one point of contact for all of yourselves in the business to make sure that we can help execute on the things that you need to make yourselves successful. I'll jump a little bit into the two functions very briefly, but at the CTT team, and which is really about the product management and the ownership of the current applications we have. So all the applications that you'll be familiar with, that's OneView and RenewView, Blue Sky, and the various components of Blue Sky, Sigma, PartnerView, ServiceView, etc. The team is allocated and aligned against each of these platforms, and to make sure that we're supporting the business around the perform functions and looking at the enhancements and the requirements that are needed in those platforms to deliver effectively. The other side is the transform side, which is looking at where we grow and move into the future. That involves some of the digital transformation initiatives, Partner Central, which I'll touch on just now, how we work with vendors and yourselves to make sure the vendors understand both our capability today and where we're potentially evolving to, as well as what the vendors are looking for in the future that we need to make sure that we're aligned with. And of course, our partners and what partners want from us. So the CTT team is really looking at the ownership of the platforms, and the COE team is around the operational development and excellence in our processes and making sure that we have process efficiency, but utilizing proper communications, working with yourselves in the business, looking at how to optimize processes, looking at how to enhance and provide continuous improvement, as well as the automation functions that we've seen a lot of in the last 12 months. And so these two teams working hand in hand are able to look at what we need from a platforms and a process perspective end to end to make sure that we're getting the right value for our investments and making sure that we're making it easier to do business with from ourselves, for our partners, and for our vendors. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about some of our immediate priorities. And as this function is really only, just on 2 months old, we've been working through a number of different areas, and there will be lots of detail that I look forward to sharing with you in the future around the various projects that we're looking at and the certain priorities. But at the moment, we've grouped things into, the perform, which is really around delivering on what David talked about, being the finish what we started activities. The things that we've already started or have got halfway through, that we need to make sure that we see bedded down and we drive the adoption throughout the business in the different areas. And then if those functions are appropriate, making sure that we translate them across Westcon International so that all of the regions are able to benefit from those. So that really is the number one priority of the team at the moment in terms of driving out those objectives across the rest of this financial year. From a transformation perspective, our focus is around Partner Central. And many of you will have heard of Project Centura, which was talked about in previous All Hands as the digital transformation project. That hasn't stopped or gone away. We've just defined a name for the new platform, which is Partner Central, that we will be looking to implement over the next year. And that will be around, getting through the proposal stage and the definition work that we've been doing, as well as planning around what the future delivery will be of the platform. And that really is the partner platform that we want to focus on to enable partner usage, as well as enabling additional capabilities for our vendors. Of course, we need to look at some internal things as well, and these are the things that we'll be looking at around how do we look at the tools and systems that we have on a global basis, and the effectiveness today. How do we drive additional adoption? What are the things that we can do to make sure that they're simpler and easier to use for everyone? How do we manage the actual governance of the requirements and the requests coming from the business? And how do we make sure that we feed back to you around the various priorities and where those new requests will fit in? And making sure that we talk to our vendors around the capabilities that we have today, as well as the things you want to look at in the future. But making sure that they do understand that today we are a full service digital distribution business with the capability around software as a service, tangible technologies and intangibles, licensing services, training, all of the things that we've been doing as a distributor for a very long time. We really need to make sure that our people internally and our vendors really understand that capability that we're able to offer today. And lastly, we want to make sure that we just reevaluate some of the digital first strategy and the components of what was in there, making sure those are aligned to the things that we want to deliver in FY22. Ultimately, our role as a function will be to support you, make sure that we're working hand in glove with the IT team to deliver on the technologies that are going to make a change for the business. We definitely see this as an evolution, not a revolution. Because so much great work has been done already. It's really about making sure that we're getting the benefits of that going forward. So on that note, I'd like to hand over to Dwight, who's going to give you an update around the IT priorities in FY22 and beyond.
Thank you so much, Rack. Really looking forward to your partnership. I think it's great to have the CTO office on board, and I'm really looking forward to that. Right, so FY21 was a really successful year for us, starting with the infrastructure and security team, who really delivered, I would say, an excellent and outstanding service level for our critical applications. They delivered over 99% uptime in Q4 in our critical period for all our main applications and tier 1 applications. Also key for us was remote governance. We started the year really concerned about how we would deliver high-touch projects such as Partner Central that Rack just talked about and automation, how we would do that remotely without meetings. But we regrouped as a team and really came back with, moving to a full agile structure where we could deliver more changes faster and in smaller chunks, as well as tight requirements and really a lot of upfront design. And you'll see that when we start talking about the design for Partner Central. APIs, we delivered quite a few APIs. We have 10 of them now, all the way from quote to invoices. So I really would love for you to go out and talk to your partners about this, because using APIs as opposed to EDI it's much faster to onboard a partner using our APIs than using any other technologies. Cloud billing maturity, we've heard a lot about from our partners that they want to do more SaaS, more different billing options. So we really matured in this area. Blue Sky is now tightly integrated, or I should say a lot tighter integrated with SAP. It's also, we've launched a lot of products with Blue Sky, as well as just transitioning Blue Sky into more a cloud billing options, which we'll see in some coming slides. And then lastly, quote to order and order automation. We've done a lot in this area. We've launched 7 order automation initiatives with Reese and the Process Excellence team. And we've also just launched Zero Touch Quote for Palo Alto, and we have a few vendors that's coming up soon in the next coming quarters. In the next slide, I'd like to talk about our objectives for FY22. And for FY22, we really have 3 objectives, really simple. We would like to optimize our existing application, just like Rack talked about. Do more about partner transformation and modernize the way our partners interact with us, both from our front end and back end perspective, and make data analytics a priority. And the way we're going to do that is, Rack and David talked a lot about this, is first finish what we started. We've started to we've changed our engagement model to really listen to what are the pain points in our existing application, what we need to address. And we're starting to work on that and put a really good program how we start deliver those finish what you started changes. Everything we do from a finish what you started will be enabled by dashboard and reports. So we want to also measure the success of our automation initiatives. And then the other thing that we want to make sure we do is really just modernize our back end and make sure that even our business tools, Microsoft Team, Office, that we keep modernizing the way we work. Because as David said, we're going to go to a hybrid work model, and we want to make sure you have the best tools available. The final 2 points on positioning our front end and using data is really what's gone into the design of Partner Central. But basically what we want to do is we want our front end and the way our customers see us to catch up with all the investment we've made with our back end. And we also want to use data as a one-stop conversation on how we project, how do we serve our customers by using data and analytics. On the next slide, we'll talk about Partner Central. Right, so Partner Central, this is the design. We've worked, as a team, and this is also a great example of collaboration. The IT team, the marketing team, and the CTO office really got together and designed a really compelling solution. We're going to play a video on the solution, but there's a couple of things I want you to take away as you watch the video. The platform that we're developing, Partner Central, is flexible. You'll see that in the video. It gives us a lot of different options. It also gives us the option to scale in the future. It's simple, easy to use. It unifies our hardware and software experience, so it's one-stop shop for both hardware and software, and it aligns to our data and reporting strategy. We wanted to make sure that our customers, both internally and externally, can see and react to the data that we project, and you'll see that in the design. And the other thing is it leverages all of the work that we've done in our backend systems, such as the XView suite, the Blue Sky suite, and also gives us the ability when we want to start leveraging things like zero-touch quote and all of the SBA automations that we've put in place. The next thing I like to do is to show you the video of Partner Central.
I really like that, Dwight. I love the concept of how that looks already, and what it could mean for the future of our business in terms of how we engage with our partners and the things that we have to offer, to the market and to support our vendors into those markets across the world. So I think that really looks great, and I'm excited to see where we can go with that.
Yeah, me too. Right.
Yeah. So, folks, that really is, I suppose, a conceptual video of where we're looking. These are things that we're working on, and there's been a lot of input from yourselves in different parts of the business in terms of shaping that vision. So, look forward to communicating more with you around what we will be doing and how we'll be doing it. but wanted to at least give you a bit of a sneak peek on some of the things that we're working on. But I think there's a lot of exciting stuff to come. So thank you very much, Dwight. Your partnership and working together has just been absolutely brilliant. And likewise, looking forward to working closely with everyone across Westcon International and the business around making sure that we take our platforms a step further and make sure that they're delivering the value that you all need. So on that note, I think I'm going to hand over to Donna.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rack and Dwight. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're well. It's beautiful and sunny in the UK today. So to start with, I'd like to just talk about 4 areas of focus for HR and everybody throughout the next financial year. So the first is really about self-service HR. It's really, really important that we see adoption by everybody. So whether it's us as an employee or us as a manager, because to ensure that we can enhance the system and bring on new functionality and indeed support us through different areas or different moments in our work life, it really is important that we see the system is fully adopted. So we're going to be looking at training courses and making sure that everyone is reminded of how to use the system properly. Obviously, training is a huge part of what we do. We are looking to continue a great training program, working closely with our business leads, to identify relevant training and identifying gaps and employee needs through training. So Howard Hines will be presenting at the business update in April. He'll go through more details on that, but that really does remain a big focus for us. And of course, employee welfare, that is top of our agenda always. But we also like to focus on education. And I don't know who knows, but in the UK, for instance, we have an award-winning apprenticeship scheme, and we're quite passionate about that, and it's about giving back, really. So we'd like to take that a step further this year. We're looking at creating an academy where we can invite people to while we support them through training in cybersecurity. Another area that we're looking into is employee engagement. It's key that we ensure that all of us as employees have a voice, but it's as important that those voices are heard. So we're looking at ways that we can measure that more throughout the following year. And if you have ideas on that, please, share them with me. But that really takes me on nicely to the employee engagement survey, which is on the next slide. Well, what can I say? Other than a huge, huge thank you to everybody. The response rate was phenomenal. I'm just showing you a very high level slide because we're still analysing some of that data. But, you can see that we had 82.4% of employees respond, which is the highest rate we've ever had. And you can also see on the right-hand side of this slide, on the closed questions that we asked, we have got a better response rate. We have improved year on year. So what we're going to do with this, we've still got to analyse the open questions that we asked. That's coming through. As soon as we have that full suite of data, we will publish the results. So it'll be published on self-service HR. We'll also localise them so that they are spread throughout the business. And where in areas where maybe there needs to be a local focus, we can then see that through those results. Before I go on to my last slide, I'd like to be able to bring David Grant back in to the conversation, if that's okay. David, before we move on to the last slide, is there anything you wanted to say about the survey results?
Thanks, Donna. Yeah, so I've got a number of perspectives. So I think the first thing is that we've seen an increase yet again year on year on the response rate. So we've gone from, I think, 81.7 to 82.5% this year. And what I recognise is that not everything that we do is perfect. So the fact that 82% of our employees care enough about their involvement in our business to give us the feedback, I think is fantastic. So the other thing that I've noticed is that even where people are calling out things that they think we could do differently or do better, the way in which that's presented to us is really constructive. So I think the fact that people are responding at this level is outstanding. And I know that on the closed questions, I've had a bit of a sneak peek. So, for example, the would you refer a friend? I think we're nearly at 90%. So I think if that means that 9 out of 10 of our employees would refer a friend to come and work with them at the business, I think that while I've said that there are things that we clearly can do better, it would suggest to me that on balance, we're doing a number of things right. So I'm really looking forward to getting the feedback in detail and really understanding what it is what are the major call outs that could make us an even better employer. But thank you to everyone who took part and took the time to give us the feedback, good or bad. I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time.
Thanks, David. So we'll move on to the next slide then. And David, if you'd like to stay on for this one too.
Yeah. So everyone will remember that at the turn of the calendar year, by way of saying a special thank you and well done for all of the work that people have done in the calendar year, we gave everyone an additional kind of bonus for that festive period or that end of year. But one of the other topics that we recognise is that over the last 12 months, we have really been restricted from a domestic point of view, and we've been unable to spend as much time away from work or with our friends, family, loved ones as we probably have liked. What I also recognise is that in some parts of Europe, we're actually now seeing a third iteration of increased restrictions and lockdowns, which is tragically just not the direction that any of us want to be going in. But what we had decided is that we'd like to offer everybody in EMEA an additional extra days holiday this year. And the reason for that is that we just feel that we want people to be able to take an extra day to step away from what they're doing at work. We know that everyone's really busy, but to take that extra time, that day away, to spend with friends or family or giving something back, doing whatever you want to do, but recognise, of course, that the timing of you taking this day is going to be governed by where you currently live and what the local restrictions are. So I think we had this idea and we stand by it, that it does give people something for them to spend with friends and family, but we kind of put it in place before some of the additional restrictions. So we recognise that we're going to have to give you time to take that extra day, but hopefully it won't be too long. Donna?
Thank you, David. And David, I would like to personally thank you on that. It's a great initiative. So just some practicalities around that. The extra day will be loaded into self-service HR. It will be taken in the same way that anybody would take their normal vacation, but we'll ask you to pick complimentary day so that we can just record that it's being taken. We'd ask that you take it before the end of the financial year, but I'll also send out, or actually local HR will send out information just to recap on that and what we're looking at. So don't panic, information will come out, but that will be loaded from the 1st of April, tomorrow. Is that 1st of April? All right, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So we have got lots and lots of questions. So and unsurprisingly, a number of them have been about the announcement at the start of last week about the Synnex and Tech Data merger. What I would just ask my fellow presenters, if you can scan through those questions that have come in. I think there's some for Rack and Dwight, and then there's some for Donna, and also quite a lot for me as well. But if we may not be able to get through all the questions, but we'll get through as many as we can for sure. But never a dull day in distribution. So who would have seen Synex and Tech Data coming together as a single powerhouse? But of course, most questions are, well, what does it mean to us? Of course, well, first of all, let's just remind ourselves that Synex only operate in the Americas, so Canada, North America, and LATAM, and they've got a business in Japan. And we don't operate in Japan, but therefore Synex does not operate in any market in which we operate. And Tech Data, of course, we know they operate in Europe, they operate in parts of Asia Pac. They're not very strong in Asia at all, and they have nothing in the Middle East or Africa. So they call themselves a global, but actually they're not. Their footprint is not truly global. What does this mean? Well, coming together in this way means that actually there is now 2, not 3, massive distributors in North America. But it changes nothing about the footprint they have in the markets in which we operate. So you can look at the fact that this provides a significant powerhouse of distribution in North America. But actually the vendors to whom I've spoken, recognize that actually this reduces the amount of customer choice, and in some cases reduces the vendors' distribution routes from 2 down to 1. But what it does underscore is the real focus and the increased value of the role of distribution in the transformation in the IT space. Ingram are now held by private equity. They're a private company. Platinum Private Equity bought Ingram from H&A a few months ago. We then saw that Tech Data were taken private by Apollo, and now this merger actually gives Tech Data a route, because Synex are a listed business for exit over the next few years. So when you consider that private equity looks for a significant return on any investment it makes, there is no doubt, I think, in the view and the minds of the financial community, that distribution has a significant role to help in the migration from what we saw as traditional to subscription and then consumption-based business models. And of course, you've seen from our point of view that we are putting even greater focus this year on extending our capability on those platforms. So I don't think it will have any day-to-day impact on our EMEA or APAC businesses. The initial feedback from Synex is that they want to maintain the work on the JV. And of course, Synex does have an 8% holding. The other 92% is held by Datatec in Westcon International. But this transaction is not going to close until September, and nor will it close without significant scrutiny from all of the European and APAC and US regulatory bodies. And therefore, we believe that over the course of the next few months, that 8% shareholding will be removed. Whether they Tech Data are compelled to make that change, or whether Datatec decides that we will be proactive in that regard, I don't know at this stage. But we are not concerned about our business moving forward. In fact, if anything, it strengthens our position, because I think it highlights that strength of distribution. So as I've said, you can look at this as half full or half empty from a business point of view. There is no doubt that they will be a significantly stronger business together, but they've confirmed already that there's $200 million of costs to be taken out of the business. And it doesn't say that that's all going to be in North America or the Americas. So how many people who are working at a Tech Data office now are thinking, well, how much of that 200 million is coming out of our businesses in Europe or in Asia? So I think that the Tech Data teams are possibly more concerned about this than we are. So anyway, I think that answers the question. I couldn't have an all hands call without referring to it. It consumed a big part of my Monday and Tuesday of last week, as you could have imagined, talking to Datatec and also talking to some of the vendors. But from our point of view, we see it as business as usual, and no changes there. So then my last slide are what I'd call the key takeaways for you as a group for this year. So the first one is our platform capability. We already have really good capability with Blue Sky, with PartnerView, and with our cloud billing service. But under Partner Central, pulling the interface of those applications together so that we can manage through a single platform, hybrid solutions, subscriptions, renewals, consumption billing, and also the master agent commission model is going to be an absolute priority. Internally, we've talked about this finish what we've started, and you will see a real focus on not just the order process and then the order placement on the vendors as we've done in the past, but this order generation, sales engagement, and driving to make sure that those processes are automated and aligned. We're also going to be making sure that we drive uniform adoption. There is not an opt-in or opt-out choice. We will be using these applications when they're fit for purpose relentlessly. And we want to do all of that to improve your productivity and reduce some of the workload that you face throughout the days now. So you should expect to see process improvement and optimization. I'd ask you to embrace that, and you should start to look to see some of that platform capability coming forward. And the final piece is you should start to hear and see a lot more about our business. We have some fantastic capability, and we just don't tell enough of our stakeholders. We don't tell our vendors. We don't tell you enough, nor do we tell our partners. So by the end of this year, in fact, actually in the next few months, I want everybody who is in a sales role to be able to articulate our proposition to our partners and to our vendors. And I want our vendors to really understand what our capability is. And that will help us improve our brand recognition and our positioning in the market. And that's because if we have that, we will be able to attract more partners, more customers, and more vendors. And by the end of this year, I would expect you to be able to reflect on this slide and say, yes, we've made real progress in all of those areas. So I'm going to now take some of the questions, if I may. I'm just going to flick through them in just the orders that they came out to me. There was a question about inventory stuck in the Suez Canal, plus there was a question about the semiconductor shortages. I suspect we do have, and we have had some product delayed in the Suez Canal issue. We've also seen some impact, of course, from the semiconductor constraints. The feedback we're getting from Cisco, Extreme, and a number of the vendors is that they anticipate those shortages running to probably the start of the second half of our year, so August. And our response will be that we will be investing more in additional buffer inventory so that we can service the demand from our partners, but also perhaps take opportunity to satisfy some of the partners who buy from other distributors, if they're silly enough to do that, on the basis that we'll be able to take market share through available inventory. I'm just going to take one other question, which there was a question about, given that the results are so good, will we be getting huge pay rises? The reality is that we need to just keep, I think, our results in perspective. So actually, although we've seen what we call a significant improvement in our EBITDA, actually below that level, we've had this significant interest expense that we've now reduced. And last year, we got to a point where we were just above break even for the first time in about 5 years. So actually, although we've had great results, we still have to continue to move forward to make the business truly profitable. So that's the first thing, that the context is, yes, the results are great, but great results and being hugely profitable are two different things. Our pay reviews, and Donna can also comment here, we have benchmarked our pay reviews against the private sector in all of the markets in which we've given pay reviews, and made sure that we met somewhere between the medium and the upper quartile. Of course, everybody would like a bigger pay review, but what we've aimed to do is make sure that we can give people what we believe is the right reward and continue to provide positive employment environment. So I don't apologise for the fact we can't give everyone 20%. Because it's just not affordable in the context of the business in which we operate. But I do believe that we offer a much broader benefit portfolio to our employees, other than just the what's in salary or bonus. And I think that's generally reflected in the positive responses we've had from our employee survey. Donna, is there anything that you would add to that comment?
No, I don't think there is. I think you answered it fully, David, actually.
Okay, thanks. So, Rack and Dwight, there were some questions about our subscription business models, email integration, trying to read through without taking too much eye off the screen, cloud solutions, Cisco integration, a number of questions. So not sure if you've had a chance to read through them, but you maybe want to just pick two of those.
Yeah, I could take the Rag, if you want. I could take the partner view and the email integration, if that's okay.
Please go for it, Dwight, and I'll cover the rest.
So there was a question of partner view. Is Partner Central a replacement for Partner View? And yes, it is. It's merging all those platforms together. There was another question on email integration into SalesView. So that is not scheduled at this time. We are going to focus on some of the the automation initiatives, as well as some of the things in terms of modernizing our front end. And but we have not scheduled any of these email integration change into SalesView as yet.
Okay. So there was a question around Catherine's plans for cloud adoption for Westcon. I think the simple answer is that the work done by Catherine and the team before Catherine left is very much shaped the strategy overall of what we're looking at and where this is going. So the driving additional cloud around the Westcon vendors is still very much a part of the planning and has shaped some of the reasons of what we're looking at and the capabilities around the platforms. So I hope that answers that question. There was a question around exclusive or some of our competition acquiring born in the cloud distributors and what is Westcon's plans to be ready to act. I think the simple answer is I think we're already acting. We already are working with all of the vendors that have cloud capabilities. We're either already transacting that, and cloud is called out as a growing percentage and a rapidly growing percentage of our overall revenue. As you know, we work with Cisco, we work with Microsoft, we work with AWS across Westcon International as probably the three biggest vendors. But as new vendors are bringing cloud offerings to market, we have the capability to bring those into our platforms. So I don't think we're out there looking at what we want to do in the future. I think we're actually executing on it now and working hand in hand with our vendors around where they are on their roadmap to take those things to market. There was another one around professional services. Interesting, how would that be presented in the dashboard for a customer as visible in the showcase in the future? Could we look at services as a product? I think the answer there is very much that Partner Central really we want to build as the entire reason for looking at this architecture is to build it as a modular platform. So we want to make sure that we have a strong foundation, but the future features and the things we want to take to market, we want to be working with yourselves in the business on making sure that we understand exactly what you think would be a good idea and would be a good revenue or feature for partners. Getting those parties from you and building those into the platform, be able to do that in a much more rapid basis moving forward. So I think I've covered most of the questions there, David. I don't know if I've missed any.
No, I think that's good. Thank you very much. There are lots of questions, and what we'll do is there's one question in there for Donna I think would be useful for you to answer, Donna, about the annual employee review. When will that open? Okay. And then I'll take a last question just so the team can queue it up. There's a question about how will we keep momentum in 2021? Is the market not saturated? I'll take that. Then I think we'll probably be up on time. Donna, over to you then on the review question.
Thank you. So before I answer the review question, there was also somebody asked about the days holiday and was it only in EMEA? And no is the answer. This was a global announcement, although we're announcing it in this call today. So on the review process, well, I mentioned earlier about new functionality coming into self-service HR. We're going to see some changes in the next few weeks. So the review process will open on the 1st of May this year, but it's going to be open a lot longer. So we need to do some training around it before it goes live. But like I say, it's going to be a longer process, so people have more time to consider and to complete that process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. So yeah, there was a question about how are we going to maintain momentum? Is the market not saturated? Well, we are driven or governed, if you like, by a number of factors. So the first one is that, of course, a lot of the investments in last year we saw were about driving remote working. And then as a consequence, there was an awful lot of planned investments that were scheduled for last year that just didn't happen, particularly around infrastructure in offices, etc. So as the market moves now to a returning to work and probably a hybrid of office and remote working, it will drive a refresh in a whole number of other solutions around returning to looking at infrastructure, and also the coming into identity and zero trust. So there are going to be as many opportunities driven this year with a shift in work patterns as there were last year. We've also started to see a significant improvement in the order intake in our Cisco business. So last year, a lot of the Cisco infrastructure refresh just wasn't feasible, and we're starting to see that increase. So when we combine the expected growth in the security market that will continue, a return to some increase in revenues in infrastructure that was very suppressed last year, the new vendors we've brought on board, the new geographies we're going into with some of our existing vendors, and our opportunity with Comstor, we believe that there is significant market upside for us to continue to grow at that 9% rate that we've budgeted. So market opportunity is not my biggest concern. My concern is about us being fit for purpose and being able to capture those opportunities using the tools that we've talked about and making sure that we are efficient enough internally to be able to cope with all of that increased volume without swamping our teams. So I'm sure that we would like to spend time answering a number of the other questions that we have listed here. What I am going to do is request that we just take those questions down, and we'll make sure that in the next week or so we respond to all of those questions and circulate them to everybody, so that nobody who's actually taken the time to ask a question doesn't see an answer and doesn't feel that we've responded appropriately. So last comments from me. Thank you so much for everything that you did last financial year in FY21. One of the most difficult years in so many ways, but you know, the unrivaled response to the unprecedented circumstances does sum it up. And we have all of the available attributes at our disposal to make sure that we can build on that momentum and continue to be just as successful this year as we were last. So thank you all very much indeed for your time and your attention and responding to the survey, the employee survey. And I'd just like to remind everyone to make sure that you please stay safe and connected and protected, and look after your friends and family and colleagues. Thank you very much indeed.